Justin Corritore and Matt Petruso. Let's have an excellent round.
All right, Apartment Association. Can you guys hear? We're good? Matt, always a pleasure. Thank you to the office for having us. This is a great topic. It's something I'm passionate about. I know Matt's passionate about it. And we've had plenty of conversations with a lot of you in this room about Airbnbs and how that can be implemented into your current business model. So just a quick show of hands, who currently has an Airbnb that they manage and run? Wow, not too many people. All right, so not a lot of people, like less than 10 hands. So this is interesting. Matt and I, we're both in the business. We both have Airbnbs. I have 10. How many do you have, Matt? Matt's got 7. Both in the business, but we run them completely different. We'll get into a little bit of the background of how we got started, but just from a high level, Matt does the traditional weekend warrior, 1, 2, 3 days, short-term stays, and he also does some out-of-town Airbnbs, which is unique, and then I do what is considered a longer-term stay within the Airbnb business model. So my minimum stays are 10 nights, and then I do some other things with linens and toiletries and stuff. That's really unique for me. So we were talking at the table before, you can use this with any of your traditional rentals, you can convert them, and you can be as aggressive or as passive with this niche model as you want to. So we'll get into that tonight. We'll kind of talk in depth about the pros and cons of each and how we've made it work for each of us. So if you want to start with how you got involved and how you got your Airbnbs.
So, thank you guys all for coming. Real estate is honestly kind of something I stumbled into just in general. It's not my main business. I actually have an insurance agency, and then real estate is just kind of a fun little thing that I got into. And when Airbnbs came about, it came about because one of my friends in a mastermind that I was in kind of told me about the potential that he was making off of some of the properties that he had. I already had some properties that I owned, and when they became vacant, I put one on Airbnb to test it out, and I was like, okay, this is actually better than actually having to do the onboarding process of a new tenant, worry about all the headaches of having a long-term tenant, destroy my property, and I could make a little bit more money. So it was really interesting to me, and everything that I do is kind of based off of how I want my lifestyle to be and how I want my life to look. So I thought, I'm like, oh, okay, well, there's a way that I can actually implement this into, like Justin said, other places throughout the country that I'm able to acquire a property that I wanted anyways, but then I can utilize Airbnb as an easy model to keep cash coming in, and then also have that property as a excuse for me to visit there and take care of the property while I'm on vacation, right? So these are ways that the real estate is the best business to have, right? That's why we're all here, because there's so many ways to create real estate into a lifestyle business that allows you to live the way you want. I want to actually tell a little quick story, because a few days ago I was in Cancun, Mexico, actually looking at another property, and I met with some realtors down in Playa del Carmen to implement this exact model. And while I was down there, I actually was working out. Well, I went to the gym before it opened, about 10 minutes before it opened, and a guy approached. You could tell he was an athlete back in the day, kind of mid-40s, and he got there before the gym opened up too. And we started chatting back and forth, and he was in his mid-40s, and I ended up finding out he was a physician. He was based in Long Island, and he was there on his 20th anniversary with his wife and 2 kids. And throughout the workout, we ended up actually talking a lot, and I got to know him a little bit more. And as you can tell, like, I'm high energy all the time. So I'm jumping around, I'm throwing kettlebells and stuff. And he's like, man, he goes, you got, so much energy. He goes, we started talking about, what I did and, how I'm able to be here and all this stuff. And, I mentioned real estate to him, and he got like really perked up about it and started asking me a lot of stuff about real estate. And, basically I learned a lot that he really wants to start investing in real estate. But I also felt that he was holding something back from me. And eventually, he ended up actually confessing that he basically said, like, Matt, you know, I wish and thought that I was going to be a lot further ahead. He was about 40, I think he said 44. He was 44. He goes, I thought I was going to be a lot further ahead than I am right now. You know, I went the traditional route. I got, you know, my good schooling. I went and got my doctorate, all this stuff. And he goes, you know, at the end of the month, he goes, pretty much I'm empty, you know, not only financially because I'm taking care of the kids, I have to move to a new house, new car, all this stuff, but then also like energy is depleted, right? At the end of the day, I'm still spending time basically doing this job to earn money. And he was empty. And you could tell that it was weighing on him. And that hit me because it's not a story that is unique, you know? Most people think like, oh, well, like this is a unique story. He's living the American dream. Well, it's because he's playing the wrong game. Like we are all in here because we want to play the game of freedom so we can have the options to do what we want to do, right? That's all why you're all here, I think, right? So what this allows us to do is, all of you too, is to be able to create freedom and options that you choose, right? So that's why we're here. And Airbnb allows you to have a couple more options, right? It's just tools in the tool chest, right? So I always look at things as how can I implement this into a cash flowing business that I'm able to systemize and implement and also enjoy, right? Enjoy, and not only enjoy for myself, but also make it a pleasurable experience for whoever is using it, right? So it actually motivates you to keep your properties in better shape and condition because, like we were talking, like, well, we don't want a bad review, right? Because that impacts our business. And I always wanted to do these things and implement and make the property look better. But, you know, I know the tenants are going to, no, they're going to trash it. So I just put in something cheap, right? But if I know that it's going to be maintained pretty well, I'll make my place a little bit nicer. So I think it's just an overall better experience in the landlording space that I've had. So that's just kind of how I got into it, and not to go too into much detail yet, but like that is why we're here, right? Like we want to have a better experience, we want to have more energy, we want to have options so you can do the things you want to do. That's why you're here. So I think it's a great model to do it, and I think Justin will go a little bit deeper into more of the specifics. I do things mostly from an emotional standpoint. I'm like, how does this affect me emotionally? And then I logically make the decision after the fact. So that's why I'm here. Yeah.
So cool. So good story. So one of the notes there that I hope you guys all caught was that lifestyle design, right? Like what Joel said about collecting a past debt. We've all had tenants destroy a place. We've all had debts go unpaid. We've all lost money in the traditional landlording game. Now, when you start talking Airbnbs, you enter into a different demographic of client, right? These are people, whether they're coming in for a quick weekend getaway, or these are people that are here for contract work. You know, they are not necessarily there long enough to wreak as much havoc as a traditional 12-month residential lease. I mean, there are exceptions to that. You hear all the horror stories. You hear about the shooting that happened in Erie a couple months back. That happens all over the place, but you guys also know that traditional rentals have far greater risk of damage and chaos with a regular tenant. So kind of switching gears a little bit, I actually stumbled into the Airbnb space. I was always attracted to it. I always fantasized about like, wow, how could I implement something internationally or on the East Coast or down south or Long Island? We have family in New York City where we can own something away and have a tax efficient business model that we could use for vacations, right? Well, I bought a big building and I thought I was going to lease it commercially. That didn't work, went vacant for a couple months, and I said, well, I've got to do something with it. So I leased one empty room in this big building to a GE contract guy from India who I said, yeah, month to month. It was an empty room, unfurnished. The whole house was unfurnished. He just wanted a cheap place to stay. He had a blow-up mattress, suitcase. He set up I don't even know what, I mean, he had basically nothing, but he was the happiest guy in the world because He sent all of his money overseas, and it was cheap, and it was close, and that was all that he needed. So that got me thinking. I'm like, okay, well, this is really interesting. You know, I'm sure if this guy found me, he actually inquired about one of my traditional rentals, and he specifically asked me because he only had a 6-month contract. So I said, no, but I've got this building that I would be interested in renting you a room. So that's how that conversation happened and that relationship started. So then I was like, okay, well, I've got 5 other rooms in this building, 6 rooms total, and I, you know, just basically every week I put another one on the market and I got them booked right away. These were unfurnished rooms, simple, no TVs, no couches, no chairs. Literally, it was a nice building, but unfinished. And in the city of Erie, that would be considered a rooming house, right? Anybody with 4 non-related members or over living together has to be registered as a rooming house. So I went through that process. That was pretty straightforward, but I promoted all of those rooms on Airbnb. I did some direct bookings as well, but it was all Airbnb. And I made $400 each bedroom for those 6 rooms. That was a ton of money, considering that I probably could have leased that building for maybe $1,500 a month on a commercial lease or residential 12-month lease to a single family home, right? So then I thought, well, all right, why don't I, that money was pretty good, why don't I throw a bed and I'll lightly furnish it, right? So went to Fred's, walked in, I said, okay, I'll take that, all matching sets, cost me about $600. Went to Target, I got a work desk and a chair. Total room cost was about $750 to outfit a room. Here's another thing, talking about lifestyle design. We've traveled the world, we've stayed in our share of Airbnbs, we've been all over the place. I knew that I did not want to deal with the laundry aspect of the traditional hotel stay, Airbnb stay. So I don't provide linens, toiletries, or pillows in any of my Airbnbs. I do a minimum of 10-night stay, and I don't provide linens, toiletries, or pillows. And I have that right in my listing. So I'm attracting travel nurses, medical people, LECOM kids, GE workers, lab tech people who are here for 30 days to 9 months. I've had some people stay with me for 18 months, but they like the month-to-month. They like the turnkey, all-inclusive life. They, for whatever reason, they don't want to commit to being here, and it's worked out very, very well. I have a cleaner go in, and because of those minimum stays being pushed out, I don't have the big turnovers. I don't have, it's a much lighter management style than my traditional rentals, right? And I've implemented some processes with my property management software, which we can get into that, where I manage all the income and expenses so I can run my P&Ls through my traditional rental software. And it's automated. Airbnb's got some great, just came up with some great upgrades in the last year or so. One of them is automatic messages, where you can go in from a hosting standpoint, and each unit that you have on Airbnb, you can set up automated messages. So, and it can be customized, where you can do as many as you want. And how I do it, and I'm sure yours is very different, how I do it is 2 days before check-in, they get all the check-in instructions, right? Where to park, Wi-Fi information. I give them suggestions on where to eat depending on what time they get here. Have a safe trip. Please text me once you're in and settled, right? And then I don't communicate with them again until 2 days before checkout. And they get all the checkout procedures, what to do with the keys. I ask them to vacuum the room, throw away all the refrigerator contents, and then send me a message when you check out so I can swing by and grab the keys, etc. And that in itself, I really don't
Game changer, yeah.
I don't touch the tenants after the initial booking, right? We go over the details. Either I book them directly or we book through Airbnb, and then I let the automated messages go through Airbnb. Direct booking is also an option, just like you advertise your traditional rentals, you can also advertise your room for rents or your vacation spots. I personally like Airbnb because you eliminate the screening, you eliminate all that heavy lifting of interactions. It's literally, they ask details, you book, you send them the confirmation, they confirm it, and then the rest is automated. Payments, interest,
Well, and the protection.
And the protection too.
Yeah,
right.
so I mean, there are times when certain things get damaged. You know, I actually had a guest recently not tell me that they were bringing their dog, not only their dog, but their 3 dogs, right? So they had 3 dogs show up in this 2-unit building that I have, and it's a 2nd floor apartment. They didn't tell me they were bringing their dogs, and 2 of them were pit bulls, and 2 of them got in the back hallway that connects to the 1st floor tenant's, you know, apartment, and the tenants are calling me at 10:30, you know, at night, and I'm, you know, sleeping, but I wake up to these videos of these pit bulls trying to get into my tenant's, you know, into their, you know, unit, and they're literally videotaping it. And honestly, the dogs didn't do a ton of damage, you know, like they scratched up a little bit here, but I took a picture of the door and said, hey, I need to replace the door. They brought, you know, these dogs, and Airbnb sent me a $450, you know, literally. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. So it's nice. They have like a host protection policy that they'll take care of any damage if the guest is unwilling to pay those services. So and it's good because that guest now gets a mark from Airbnb as, hey, I obviously, you know, broke the rules and I may not be able to use Airbnb again, you know? So it basically takes a lot of the headache away from you, and, you know, the fees that they actually take from you as the owner are so minimal. It's literally like a credit card processing fee. It's tiny. It's like a less than 3% fee, and they do everything. They do the marketing, the management, and the difference, like we were talking about, the ones out of town, so some of them I do long-term, but the ones that I have in Erie are, you know, mostly nightly rentals, 2, 3, 4 nights, maybe a week here and there. But on that model, right, you do have to have it systemized where these automated messages, I have, I think, 4 or 5 messages that are automated that literally tell them the entire process right after they book, right, 2 days prior, you know, a day before they check out, and then the morning of checkout. So like they have a whole system that's put in place that you don't even have to contact them unless they literally reach out to you. And, you know, most of my, they're all electronic deadbolts, you know, so, and I change them, you know, frequently, but it's like, there's really not much hands-on things that you actually have to do after you systemize it. You have your good cleaning crew. So I do provide linens and things. I wish I didn't have to. That would be nice. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, it's a good system put in place.
So let's talk about, and this, we might have some different perspectives here about like, how do you implement, what makes a good Airbnb, right? If somebody wanted to get into Airbnbs, what should they look for? What style of house, what style of apartment? Maybe these guys all have apartments and they're thinking about converting an apartment. Can you just share, because I know you've converted some of your apartments, and then I'll go too.
Yeah. So I think obviously location is obviously the #1 thing in anything in real estate. So if you have a good location, you can make it work. But even if you're in a so-so location, like I have a so-so location of one of them, but it's a really unique, and you would have never thought, like it's a 3rd floor, 1-bedroom apartment, and it's not in the greatest of areas, but it's okay. It's, you know, downtown. But I would be able to get maybe $550 a month for this place. You know, I used to get like $525, and I get about $65 to $75 a night now because it's a unique 3rd floor apartment, really unique, you know, ceilings and features that it makes it attractive to somebody that's staying a night or two, right? And they're willing to pay a little bit more for that, but it has a little bit of character to it. So if you have like kind of a weird place that maybe has a little bit of character, older building, something like that, play off that, right? Like people are coming for an experience. You know, they want an Instagram picture, you know, whatever it may be. So like Claudine, I'm sure her places are beautiful. You know what I mean? Like she is obviously a amazing, you know, designer of the space, but you might not have that skill. You hire her and she takes it and she'll make it look great for you. And I'm probably going to do that on a couple of my places. So you have to think about it from a standpoint of, if you were going to stay in wherever and it's a unique place, what's going to appeal to you more than a hotel, right? What are you giving them that a hotel can't? Not just saving them on, you know, money, but like, okay, I can add a little bit of, you know, experience to their stay here, right? So you can test it out and then figure out, okay, how do I make my apartment not look like, you know, the same apartment that, you know, I'm gonna rent out to the normal tenant here in Erie, but somebody that might be coming in from wherever, right? So just try and think about things a little bit differently to make their stay a little bit more inviting. So that's what I would suggest.
Right. So I would agree. So, you know, those interesting properties create a great opportunity to try out this Airbnb business model. So I'll get into some of the actual metrics of it. You know, when you're looking for these Airbnb properties, you hear a lot. I mean, we talked to Claudine before this that there's a lot of opposition, especially in the city of Erie, regarding R1 districts and, you know, people having Airbnbs in, you know, densely populated residential areas. When I'm looking at these properties, I have 3 buildings, 10 units total for my Airbnbs, and each one of them are in areas where I knew that I was not going to have any issues with the neighbors. They're clean, they're well located, but everybody minds their own business, or it's already in an area with existing rentals around it. So people just mind their own business, and they let you go. So you want to be mindful of the situation that you're putting yourself into, specifically Glenwood, Frontier, some of these heavy HOA areas where you're going to get people, the neighbors, you know, their neighbors care about what's happening next door. So you have to know going into it that you're going to create rifts in that block by implementing weekly turnover of new people and the hotel style, mini hotels as they call it, in those areas, right? So how do you underwrite an Airbnb, right? Say you got a property. How do I even price my nights, right? How do I find out what I should be charging for my Airbnbs? Now, Matt, I know there's something in Airbnb called smart pricing, where Airbnb, you create your listing, bedrooms, bathrooms, amenities, address, and they will actually control the pricing for you based on days of the week, seasons, etc. And it will fluctuate. Obviously, if you select that, you kind of hack the algorithm and your listings could show up higher because you're allowing Airbnb to control that, that transaction metric. I don't do that. I know how much I want to make on my properties, and I post that price, and I very, very rarely deal with occupancy issues. Now, industry standard, industry rule of thumb, I guess you could say, for underwriting these deals are a little bit different than the traditional rentals, right? Find a property, you figure out all of your expenses, right? Now, remember, you're paying for all the utilities: water, sewer, garbage, gas, electric, internet, landscaping, the whole 100% of it, right? So you need all of your expenses: insurance, taxes, utilities, lawn care, landscaping, plus your debt, right? Traditionally, it's income minus expenses equals net operating income minus your debt equals cash flow. That's not how it is in Airbnb. You need all of your expenses, including your debt. Rule of thumb is you take that number divided by 15. That should be your minimum nightly rate. So as far as occupancy goes, if you can book it for 15 days a month, you're break even. Anything over that is profit. That is a rule of thumb on underwriting Airbnb properties. Does that make sense? All right. So managing these Airbnb properties. So you can either do them through Airbnb, VRBO. Those are direct booking platforms. You can also direct book outside of those. We use porfolio, which is a property management company, property management software that deals with traditional rentals. You can promote through there. You can still use Zillow, Apartment Manager. You can do apartments.com, Craigslist, Facebook. You can promote in your normal channels that you already have established. But there's also opportunities with software, property management software that's specifically designed for short-term rentals, right? Airbnb is catching on to some of these features that these software offers. They're allowing what Airbnb calls a team approach to managing. So say you want to be as passive as you possibly can. You buy an Airbnb, whether it's in your hometown or away from someplace out of state, you can invite people to be part of your team. Cleaners, maintenance people, property managers, right? You can invite different people to have access to specific listings. Not all your listings, but whatever specific listings you want them to have access to. And then you could just take a position of monitoring that business model, right? Airbnb has really stepped up their game when it comes to the property management aspect of running your business, because they know that it's an investor's game now. It's not just a casual homeowner renting out a room like it originally was designed for. It's a legitimate business, and people make a lot of money doing it. So they're starting to cater more towards the institutional investor, like all of us, and what we would approach this business in. All right, make sense? All right. What else we got? So, okay, so I'll go back to some of my rentals, right? So my main building, 6 units, now they're all furnished, lightly furnished. I still don't have TVs, and I still don't do linens, toiletries, or pillows, right? Bought another 4-bedroom brick colonial across from Rite Aid at 26 and Sass, right? You guys probably all know the building. There's 4 units in there. Also a rooming house. City of Erie, I've told them I can't tell you how many times that I'm doing it, and they keep telling me they're going to send me the application. They never do, so I stopped asking. So, but one of the requirements is for rooming houses specifically is that every room needs to have an off-street parking spot. Something to consider if you're going to do one building with multiple rooms, right? On a legality scale. So that's my building. One of the recent ones that I implemented is I took one of my traditional 2-bedroom flats, right, that you see all over Erie, and I renovated the upstairs and turned it into an Airbnb. Now, I still don't provide linens, toiletries, or pillows, but that has a TV. That has paintings on the wall. That's got a little bit of extra amenities that I knew I wanted to be able to promote. All my other rentals were single rooms. I needed something that I could host a small family, a couple, longer term, right? Because I advertised on Furnish Finder, Airbnb, and direct bookings through porfolio, and I would be getting inquiries for small families. Hey, my husband just got accepted into Hamlet's rotation. There'll be 2 of us, and I had to say no. So necessity provides a way, right? So I took my 2-bedroom apartment, converted it, and now I'm able to host couples, small families, right? On average, I'm realizing that it costs between $5,000 and $7,000 to furnish a 2-bedroom apartment. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Close?
If you do it right, yeah.
If you do it right. Now, about between $5,000 and $7,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment. Now, you could be cheap. You could go secondhand. You could piecemeal furniture that your family donates to you, and you could take 3 weeks to outfit a place. Or you could go to a furniture store and say, this, deliver it, I'll meet you there, and be done with it. Everything matches, everything's uniform, your pictures look better, it presents better, and you get higher grades on your quality and presentation. So again, we're all processes and systems. Implement those in your Airbnb business. There's nothing different than a traditional rental, and we're all in this for lifestyle design, right? You could outfit a place for probably $1,000, $2,000, but do you want to spend 3-4 weeks messing with secondhand places and Facebook Marketplace? No. Go to the furniture store, buy your furniture, go to Target, Walmart, buy all of your plates and silverware and shower curtains, and then go to Target and get a desk, right? Keep it simple. It's the same stuff in every one of my apartments.
Do you provide toiletries or anything?
No, I do not provide linens, toiletries, or pillows.
So no, like napkins or anything? No? Okay.
No paper towels, no towels, no toilet paper, literally
well, that's
nothing.
nice. Yeah.
But again, these people are coming here for 30 days, 9 months. Like, I have never had any pushback in my policy. No one has ever asked me, hey, I got here and there's no toilet paper. No, that's like, it's clearly spelled out in my listing agreement through their booking. And that's important because if there's ever a complaint, Airbnb will go through your listing, they'll go through your dialogue to make sure that what you communicated was clear enough that they should not have had that issue if they understood what they signed up for. Yes?
Do the places all share kitchens, and what do you supply in the kitchen?
So the private 2-bedroom apartment is a private 2-bedroom apartment. Has all their own private entrance, the whole thing. I have what I call private suites in my other buildings that have like a private bathroom, like a master suite, bedroom, private bathroom, and then they would share kitchens and living rooms and stuff.
Is there pots and pans and everything?
Yeah, so that I bought common pots and pans and common plates and silverware sets. But again, these people are here for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. They'll end up bringing stuff, and then you just have a collection of all the stuff that people end up using and leaving behind. Like I do single serve Keurigs in all of mine, in the kitchens anyway.
Do you provide the Keurig cups?
No.
I know.
No.
They got to bring their own cups?
No,
I love it.
yeah,
I love it.
absolutely. Come on now. Come on now.
Man, I'm doing this wrong. I'm taking all the toiletries out.
But I mean, that's the stuff that adds up, all those supplies, right?
Yeah.
So,
I buy in bulk.
yeah. See, and but again, that your client expects that,
Yeah.
right? Somebody going there for 1 to 3 nights, they don't want to deal with any of that. They expect that to be on site.
Yeah.
When they come for 9 months, to them, it's pretty much a traditional apartment, right?
Yeah.
So, different business model.
Are people booking for those long stays through Airbnb? Really?
Yeah, yeah. Now, the difference is I can't necessarily charge as much as you can get away with by supplying all of those furnishings and all those amenities, right? But for me, like
Yeah.
I can't measure my occupancy because I used cross-platform and it would be impossible to manage, but I have to guess that I'm at 95% occupancy
Yeah.
across the board on all mine. Like I really don't have any problem keeping my stuff full.
Yeah. Yeah, probably same, yeah.
Yeah. So, but my 2-bedroom apartment, I was renting for $600, right? Right across from St. Vincent's. And it's loud. You got ambulances and police people, and it's just a loud thing. So I thought, well, boy, this is an obvious one to transform into something for a medical professional, right? Because they have to be within a certain distance from their hospital assignment. And now I get $1,600 a month for that place. So there's real money to be made. Yes, Bob.
How much more are you making with an Airbnb versus having what you have rented it for? If it was just a long-term 1-year tenant.
So that's what I was saying before. So my 2-bedroom apartment, I was renting for $600. Now I'm getting $1,600, right? That 6-unit building, when I first started, was $400 a month, or $400 a month for each of those rooms.
Right.
So I mean, that was $2,400, and I probably could have gotten $1,500 a month maybe on a commercial lease for that building.
Okay.
Right? Now I'm up $700 a month on those rooms.
Okay, but what after expenses, what's your net?
Oh, sorry.
That's what I'm.
So I mean, at the end of the day, what I usually factor in, just to be safe, I factor in probably like an extra $300 per unit in expenses, right? So it has to profit me more than $300 more than what I would get. That's kind of what a ballpark of like on higher months throughout the year for utilities, the electric, the internet, you know what I mean? So the added expenses that I just calculate in of the water, sewer, all that stuff, it comes out approximately to $300 a unit. So if that property is not making me more than $300 more than a traditional rental, it would just be breaking even, right? So most of them are doing more than that, So usually 500 to 600 more than what I would get at minimum.
So would you say that your net is double than what the rent would have been and you not pay the expenses? For example, would you be making, say if the regular rent would be, say $1,200 a month, would you be making, say $1,200, $2,500 net after expenses? 2,500?
No, not net. So like it might be possible. Like some of my properties in the summertime, I'll say I get $1,000 a month for a 3-bedroom, long-term tenant, right? That same 3-bedroom, the second floor apartment in the summer will will probably gross anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000. So yeah, that's more than double even after expenses, right?
Is your major expense, is it cleaning? I mean, what I'm asking is, it seems like cleaning, especially during COVID and then even now, these ratings, these 5-star ratings, they're saying that having it cleaning is really an important factor. And so I was wondering, how do you, I mean, you don't supply linens, but who cleans your units?
So there's so in Airbnb, like there's a cleaning fee that you literally assign to the guest. The guest pays an additional fee for the cleaning fee. And you can set whatever cleaning fee you want. So if you already, like I already know how much I pay my cleaning service per unit. So I usually charge probably time and, half of that at least. So I'm making a little bit on top of it, I'm getting paid more than what I pay the cleaning.
You take all of your expenses, including your debt, divide it by 15. That'll give you a minimum nightly rate. You set that as your minimum nightly rate. If you can get more, even better. But that should be your minimum night. That's just industry rule of thumb. Like, I'm going to tell you exactly, right? I know you're a numbers guy. So, my building across from Rite Aid right now, 4 rooms, right? 2 private suites, 2 private bedrooms. Considering, in my underwriting, I do 3% vacancy, 10% maintenance, 10% CapEx. I still do the licensing, and I clean all the common areas once a month on my own dime. Or I'm sorry, once a week on my own dime. All the utilities, my net, not including debt, just because that's how I have it in my calculator, not including debt, is $1,300 a month, considering all those contingencies, right? So that's that first one. The 2-bedroom apartment, my net, again, considering all those reserves, is $1,100 a month, net, not including debt. So,
and how much would you have to rent it out for,
I mean, well, so that's my first example where my net is $1,300. I could probably rent that building as a traditional single-family house for probably $1,500.
Plus utilities.
Plus utilities.
Yeah.
Then I got to take all my expenses out of that.
Right.
So I'm basically clearing net what I
Would
have
gross,
for
yeah.
traditionally.
There you go.
So you tweak it. The my first one, now I've taken back 2 of the rooms, so now I only rent 4 rooms. And my first big one, I rent those rooms for basically $700 a month. My net operating income, considering all those reserves that I keep in mind, is $1,000 a month net. So there's a lot of money to be made going into it, knowing how to underwrite these deals. Right? Good questions. Thanks, Bob.
We probably all heard what happened in Pittsburgh this past weekend with the Airbnb down there. Could you guys, can you give us some feedback on how that shouldn't have happened, or what to make sure that our properties aren't being rented?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, unfortunately, that's one of the reasons why I like Airbnb is because I don't have to deal with the onboarding and the screening and all the crap that comes with that traditional rental. So, but people like that slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
Now, you
It's
can
rare.
have benchmarks on pre-qualifications of people who book. They have to have a verified ID,
Correct.
verified phone number, email address, whatever the parameters are.
Yeah, you can actually set it up on Airbnb where they can't do an instant booking without certain qualifications.
Right.
So if you have, they don't have any reviews, I have to actually manually approve it, right?
Yep.
Or whatever. And on top of it, like Airbnb is very good about just kind of analyzing the context of the booking itself. So like if somebody is based in Erie and they do a last minute booking in Erie, that usually raises a red flag, and they basically will not let them book it, and it'll let me know that says, hey, this is a red flag. We block this person from booking, right? So they have a lot of things in place to, and I've seen over the last 3 years, you know, it get better. So like it slipped through a little bit more a couple of years ago. I did have a couple parties, and you know, some younger kids actually threw a party at one of my places. And it was like right at the beginning of COVID, it was a mess. But since then, like it's actually gotten a lot better, I would say, you know, and I really haven't had many issues at all.
So they handle all of the screening and get the person.
And they will step in as much as they can and coordinate any police intervention, kicking people out. I mean, there's steps that they have that you could follow. Talk about scale real quick. I know a guy in Philly who's got, I think it's 70, 75 Airbnbs, right? And these are the traditional 1 night minimum, tweaking the smart pricing, you know, basically, Jesus, take the wheel on your listings, right? He hired a security company on retainer to work for him that he can dispatch at any given time, at any given night, to take care of those types of situations. Parties, trouble, whatever it is. So, I mean, the sky's the limit with how creative you can get with this business. It really is.
Thank you.
Yeah. You got it, dude.
As far as the privacy part goes, I know some Airbnb owners have like basically put a lot of cameras into them, so privacy comes into play. I'm not sure if you guys do that.
Exterior.
Yeah, so you're allowed to have like in common areas. So I have a common area camera in most of my properties, and at the end of the day, as long as it's listed clearly in the description, once again, it's fine. And most of the time, I don't even look at them, you know. But it's like it's the eye in the sky, right? It's, you know, the fact that they think that somebody might be looking, they act a little better, right? So I like having that as a factor, just to know that, hey, you know, I know I shouldn't be smoking in the common hallway, right? Because there's a camera right here, right? Or I shouldn't bring a dog in when I didn't say I brought a dog, right? Because there's a camera, right? So the interior of the property, obviously, you don't be putting a camera, you know, in the inside of the property. But yeah, nobody really has an issue with the privacy when it's clearly stated. And on all my doors, it literally says security camera right when they walk in as well. So yeah, I haven't had any issues with it.
So, you know, in reference to this party that happened in Pittsburgh, where there were 90 shots fired, and you know, many people injured and so on. What sort of a claim do you think that Airbnb owner would have against Airbnb for the damages that occurred?
Yeah, I mean, more than like the Airbnb policy, I haven't read it recently. I think it actually even improved a little bit. The old policy was like it would cover up to $1 million in damages. So it literally was $1 million policy on any host protection. So it would cover up to $1 million in damages. I think it's the same thing as you know, it should be now. So under their, you know, their policy, they should pretty much cover all of it, you know. But I don't know. I've never filed a claim like that. That's significant.
They're going to fight you tooth and nail and actually
right.
before they do a payout. But
Right.
in theory, there is a process that you
Yeah.
can go through for those types of legitimate insurance claims.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes.
And don't you, if you do have on Airbnb, if you have damage, don't you have to report it when the next tenant comes? What you do, you don't have to necessarily report it to Airbnb, but you have to start a claim against, at least against the guest, right? So you don't have to file a claim to Airbnb necessarily, but you can, as long as you start the process and say, you know, hey, I'm requesting some damages from the tenant prior to the next guest, it's been started. And if they don't accept it, right? So if the tenant or the guest doesn't accept the charges, then you escalate it to Airbnb. Yep.
But you,
The other thing I want to ask too, now I know with you
wash before, a lot of the Airbnbs do.
Yeah, so all my units, the laundry, other than the one in Florida, the laundry is separate, so they don't have access to it. So as soon as my cleaning crew goes in there, that's the first thing they do. They strip the laundry, put it in the wash, and then they clean, right? So yeah, I don't give them access. If they stayed for a significant period of time and they wanted to pay me additional for access to the laundry, maybe, but everything is locked off. So like for instance, all of my places will have a separate closet or space that can be locked off for all of the extra linens, toiletries, toilet paper, all that fun stuff, right? So they don't have access to like the stockpile of junk that I have, right? So it's all locked off, and only the cleaning crew has access to that.
And you can ask your clients too, how many beds would you like us to make up, right? Like you don't need to make up every single bed if they're not going to stay in every single bed, right? So ask them, like if one night stay and there going to be one person there or something, why go through setting up 2, 3, 4 beds that you're just going to have to strip and wash? So it's better off just not even making them, or just eliminate linens, toiletries, and pillows. Yes?
I have a question. Have you ever had a situation where, like if it's a visiting nurse or it's somebody who's working here on assignment and they get an extension and they want a continuation, but you've already got the place booked and they've got to go.
Yeah. So
and they don't want to go.
Yeah.
You
So
still got to go through the traditional eviction kind of thing, or how do you get rid of them?
I mean, in theory, you probably should. I've never had to have that.
So I've actually had one time, the one girl just wouldn't answer. She was just kind of strange and stayed beyond the checkout, right? And I had somebody checking in that afternoon, so I'm like, we got to get her out of here, right? So the nice thing is I literally called the EPD, and they came in and I go, well, does she have a lease? Does she have anything? I go, no, her checkout was this morning, so she's trespassing. They go, okay, and they literally got her out. So, yeah.
I'll add on to that because I manage rooming house motel stuff. Those are held under hotel motel rules. They are not tenants, they're roomers. Airbnb is the same. So if they break the rule, in the rooming agreement, if they cause damage, break any of the rules, or don't pay rent, they're out. I can go kick them out right then and there if they don't.
So I always like to give a courtesy as well. Like if I have an assignment contract worker in one of my places that I see is coming up for the end, I always like to reach out and say, hey, I always like to give first right of refusal, first option to extend before I accept another booking. Do you have any intention on staying? What are the likelihood that you'll get a contract extension? And I mean, probably half the time they say, yeah, I'm going to need an extra week, 2 weeks, month. And the other half's like, nope, I'm going to move back that afternoon. We should be fine the way it is. Now, again, another talk about scale is I've had situations where somebody said, nope, I'm going to check out just as scheduled. And then I book somebody else, and then they say, hey, I got an extension. Can I stay? What can I do? And I'll bring them to another room. I'll bring them to another building, and I can move people around. And because they're such light travelers, they don't have a lot of belongings, so they can be agile enough to jump around, and it's usually, you just want to be a problem solver for people.
This question is sort of for Matt. So we talked about the coverage that Airbnb gives the host for damages and whatnot. As an insurance person, I've always been told to still try to find a traditional insurance policy that you're paying in addition to that. Don't just depend on Airbnb. And if it's your primary residence, there's at least through Erie Insurance, there's you can add just a little thing to your regular homeowners. But once it's not your primary residence, I have to get a commercial policy. So my Airbnbs have commercial policies, and therefore I'm paying a homeowner's policy that might be $300 to $700 for the year. I'm now paying $1,200 and $1,500 for those additional protections. So I just wondered, that's what I've been told.
I don't think it's necessary, but Yeah, I don't think it's necessary, because well, what's the damage that's going to occur that Airbnb wouldn't cover that insurance company would? No, yeah, I personally don't think that's necessary, but yeah, yeah.
And if you, any repairs that you have done, if you reach out to the person and they don't respond, as long as you have a repair bill, you submit it to Airbnb, they'll get you your money.
Well, that's new. That's brand new. They literally just implemented that, because I used to have the security, like I would fight with Airbnb because it said like, oh, you know, what's your security deposit? And you would put the security deposit in, and then anytime I ever filed against it, like the tenant had to accept the charges against their security deposit. I'm like, well, what's the point then? Yeah. So now they literally just implemented in that the security deposit will be charged, and they're notified that if damages are, happen to the property, and you file a proper claim against it, they will automatically charge the tenant's security deposit. That's new though. That's literally brand new. Mm-hmm.
So here's another thing, talking about that rollout of those extra charges. There's a lot of discussion in the Airbnb community of hosts, because with those charges being implemented against tenants, hosts are also now liable for charges if there's a cancellation that affects a guest's stay, right? So if you have a booking and you need to cancel for whatever reason, if it falls into XYZ category, you are liable for rehousing and rehosting that guest somewhere else. And Airbnb will deduct your bank account on file. So that update that you're talking about, Claudine, with those security deposits, there's about 5 additional charges that rolled out at the same time on both sides of the aisle, both against hosts and against tenants. So definitely something that you should know before getting, if that is a main concern for you, you should be aware of the liabilities that you're opening yourself to. Yes?
Hey Justin, how do you screen your tenants? Do you only rent to 5-star tenants? Or do you, and also what is your pet policy? I mean, is there a size of pets you rent with?
So on my rooms, I don't accept pets. On the apartment, I do accept pets, and I do an additional, I don't know, whatever it is. So I think mine's 25 or something like that. So
do you have a size limitation, or I mean, do we rent to a St. Bernard?
Actually, I don't think you can discriminate.
Yeah, you can't discriminate, yeah.
Now, so to your other part of the question about how do you screen, we kind of mentioned this a few times. I like booking on Airbnb because I don't have to deal with any of that crap. Airbnb accepts the tenant in their own background profile that they've established on Airbnb. And the only protections that you basically can have are implementing your pre-qualifications. They have to have a certified phone number, they have to have a picture on file, verified address, etc. I try to do as many of those as possible. I know if you use smart pricing and instant book, you're able to implement additional features above and beyond those. So there's some things that you can put in place to help you with screening out who you don't want, but ultimately, if you get a reservation request that meets your basic underwriting, I guess, yeah, because there's discrimination laws too. So Airbnb knows that, and they have to oblige by those same discrimination laws that we all have in our traditional.
So like you won't see a picture of the guest until after they've booked. So yeah, you can't discriminate again, which is good. It's fun.
Background checks. You're not going to get credit checks. You're not going to know any of that data.
They do it, right? Airbnb does.
I mean, they don't do credit checks or anything like that on you. No, I mean, it's just like, are you a real human? That's what they'll check.
Now, when I do direct bookings, I put them through the traditional screening process. Because if I'm going, go ahead.
Each profile, people get reviews. So if they have had a bad stay, they did something wrong, the landlord would put on their profile that stays with them, hey, they ruined the apartment, or they didn't do this, they had dogs when they said they wouldn't, so there's that aspect. But the thing to remember too is you don't have to necessarily screen as hard as you do for a 12-month rental because they're not a tenant that are held by the tenant landlord. Like we said before, you have an issue, you call the police, they're gone, you know.
You have the control. So like that's the nice thing about it is you actually are put in a position where you actually control the way that you want to run your business versus, you know, letting the tenant basically dictate when they want to pay and causing you a lot of extra work, you know? So at the end of the day, like, even if I made 10% more or even 10% less, I probably would still like these.
Yep.
Wanted to bring up that you pick what qualifications you have. The biggest issue I have is people joining, like you'll see on their profile, like they booked my place and they joined in April of 2022. Yeah. So they have just signed, created an account on Airbnb, and there are no reviews. So you can choose that they do not qualify to stay with you. Mm-hmm. You can say they must have a review. I take the stance where now there's just a different level of communication with that guest before I okay that, because if I have instant booking on, I can set, they can't instant book it if they don't have a review. So now they're going to say, I say, why are you coming? Yeah. What are you, you know, and then I say, it looks like you haven't stayed in an Airbnb before. Let's, you know, let's see what the expectation is. And then there's just more play there if you're going to let it be the first time person.
Exactly. Yep, that's a great rule of thumb for sure. I do the same thing. Mm-hmm. So you get paid after, I think, the check-in. Yeah, after the check-in. And if it's a longer stay, they only pay a 30-day at a time. They split it up. So like every 30, like if you have a guest stay over 30 days, you'll get a 30-month, you know, after the first day, and then the next month you'll get the next.
Yeah, it'll be prorated every 30 days.
Mm-hmm. And it comes from Airbnb or from the
Airbnb? Yeah. Yeah, you literally, you see nothing from the tenant.
Yes.
I heard you talk earlier about you went down to Cancun looking at things. Is there anything, like, is it different in different countries, or is it just?
No, so I mean the only thing that's different is you have to understand what the taxes are and obligations that they require down there. So like Mexico's a little unique where you can't hold the property in your name. Like you have to actually get a bank to certify a trust that holds the title for you. And yeah, so there's a couple of unique things like that you have to pay a fee for every year. So it's like a $600 management fee for the bank to hold the title and the trust. So, I mean, there's extra costs that, you know, you just need to be aware of. But at the end of the day, Airbnb is still the same. You know, you're still going to get paid the same. The system's still the same. And specifically, like the Riviera Maya area of Cancun and Playa del, you know, it's all U.S. dollar based. You know, like even though it's in Mexico, everything's paid in USD. So you don't have to really change anything out. But if you did, like Airbnb would do the conversion and pay you in whatever you want. So.
Has there been any talk that neighborhoods like we were talking about, they're funny about, you know, allowing that Airbnb situation into their neighborhoods? Mm-hmm. Some of the cities have closed down Airbnbs completely, and I'm sure you know about that. But has there been any talk? Because there's quite a few in Erie, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. Now, Mill Creek, no, not so much, and I haven't heard about Fairview or Girard or Lake City or any place. But has there been any talk as far as having those places zoned commercially, perhaps, or anything of that nature?
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about that before. City of Erie specifically is trying to implement an R1 ban on Airbnbs. Okay. Now, is it going to happen? I don't know. I think that the city is required to entertain the complaints.
I genuinely don't think that we've done a proper job to educate the city on the benefits that it's bringing to the city. We need to do a better job at making them aware of how this is not only increasing the type of people that are coming to the town, but also we are residents here and we make more money. We put that money back into our own community, thus bringing the entire community up, right? And the taxes that we're bringing in and paying to the city, we were talking about this before, They didn't even, like the controller at the city council they don't even know what they got paid from Airbnb. I'm like, that's crazy because 100% they're paying you a lot of money. And we're going to reach out to Airbnb and actually see if, hey, can you break down the numbers of what you actually paid to the city in hotel taxes, city taxes, and fees that you have literally brought to the city of Erie. And if we could say, hey, last year you literally made $1 million extra in taxes from Airbnbs, are you going to shut this business down and just take that revenue away? I don't think that's something they'd be able to pass, right? So we need to get better at communicating that.
I know Kevin Flowers did that article recently in the Times News concerning Erie and the Airbnb issue, and it was my understanding that they've got 2 or 3 new people that have come on the zoning board that are possibly interested in allowing the Airbnbs in the city, and it's been suggested that they have a study session. Are you familiar?
Yeah, Claudine probably knows more than me. If I can, this is my mindset. It's like if I can't control it, I don't even think about it. You know what I mean? I just want to make more money. I don't care. You know what I mean? Can I control this right now? No. Let me go out and make some money, and then after the fact, you know, figure it out. And I'll ask for permission after the fact. You know what I mean? So like, I don't care. You know, I'm not worried about what they're talking about. Figure it out and then tell me what to do. You know?
The low information diet.
Yeah.
There's enough noise in the world that you could burden yourself with the world's problems if you let it.
I got enough things going on.
All right, anybody else? Yes.
Hey Matt, to change it back, you have that one property you mentioned in Florida, and I know Airbnb and vacation rentals have been popular everywhere for decades. How are you managing that? You know me a little bit. I'm so hands-on. And I have offers in some places that are outside of Erie, and my biggest fear, everything you listen to online, everywhere else, is build a good team. How are you running and managing all the way 1,000 miles away?
Yeah. So that specific property,
Basically, how to manage remote Airbnb.
Yeah, so he's concerned about not having a hands-on touch to an Airbnb that I have in Florida, right? So in that specific situation, that property is in a condo complex, right? So it's in a building, right? So there's not much exterior maintenance that I have to do. There's not really much that I have to do other than clean the property. So it's not a single family house that I got to maintain the outside and clean and, you know, do all that stuff, right? It's set up that way. And then on top of it, the condo association requires a minimum 4-week stay. So it's not like I'm getting, you know, a nightly turnover, you know. So like I said before, I did this specifically because I wanted to use that place 4 or 5 months out of the year. So an example, I'm going down next week because one of the tenants is checking out. They check out, you know, end of April, and then the next tenant checks in May 15th. So now I get to go down there. I pay myself the cleaning fee, you know, and then I get to, you know, I get to write off the travel that I got to go down, and I got to hang out in my condo in West Palm Beach.
Is that how you
right?
get away from the 30-day book?
Well, no. So the reason why there's a gap is because nobody can book that 15 days. So the person that stayed for over a month. They're checking out the end of this month, and then the next guest is checking in on May 15th for a minimum of 30 days. So that 15 days was going to be vacant no matter what. I might as well go down and use it, right? So.
You said you pay yourself a cleaning fee. How do you do?
No, I'm just like it comes to me anyways. You know what I mean? I'm just kidding. Like it's not like I actually pay myself. It comes to me anyways.
All right. Who else? Yes.
Do you look at properties like out in the country or are they mostly city?
Mine are all in the city, but that's a unique opportunity. You could definitely, I mean, there's a lot of money to be made out there. You could, like, I've actually looked at just buying like stuff randomly in the middle of nowhere and just making it a unique experience. Like I think there's one in like near Corey. It's literally like a sheep farm. I swear to God, it's like have you looked on it? So if you ever look on the map and just like, you know, expand out from Erie, there's one that's like sits in, you know, between, I think like Bear Lake and, you know, Warren or something. It's just in the middle of nowhere. And the pictures are literally a goat, you know, and then like a little shack over here, and it's literally an outhouse off the back of their, like their property. And they're getting like $150 a night. You're like, what? Like, I think this guy built this last year, So it's a unique experience, though, right? And you can upcharge people for that. They're, for somebody, oh, that's an Instagrammable moment. I'll pay $150 for the night there.
Yeah, and I'll also add, just on the traditional rentals, if you can implement a month-to-month place out in the middle of nowhere, you'll be constantly booked because there's no availability. Traditional rentals are hard to find in these rural areas, let alone a place that allows a month-to-month arrangement. So, city gives you diversity and gives you volume, but there's also something to be said about the scarcity of providing these options in a rural setting.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Did you say that Airbnb takes care of all the accounting and paying taxes to the local city?
Yeah, so in Erie, 100%. So they do, like different cities will have different partnerships, and they've partnered with Erie properly, and they actually remit all the taxes on your behalf. They take everything from the guest and remit everything on your behalf. The only thing that they take from you is literally a 3% fee, hosting fee. So it's like nothing. However, my property in Florida, which we talked about a little bit, they require an additional tourist tax that I have to actually remit to the Palm Beach County Tax Association. But Airbnb recently allowed me to add that tax into my booking. I used to have to manually ask them after they booked to pay me the extra amount, but now it's Airbnb charges it, which is great. So, but I have to do that manually, and be aware of where you are, because it will, like when you start doing this or researching it, like I'm sure you saw in Bellefonte and like other places, it shows you what they are requiring, and what actually Airbnb does for you. So different places have different rules. Mm-hmm.
And talking taxes, at the end of the year, you'll get a 1099 from Airbnb
Mm-hmm.
on all your earnings.
Yeah. Yep, so your 1099, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, Bob.
How you guys find the taxes on the income? You file it under real estate or Schedule C or LLCs?
I do, yeah. I put it right in my property management software, just like I manage all my other rentals. And I just use the 1099 as a supported document.
Yeah, the 1099, you basically, it's broken down by property. So it does show you what your totals are per property. And if, like for instance, some of my properties are in different LLCs, that's a good point. Yeah, so some of my properties are in different LLCs that are in the Airbnb that get paid to the same 1099, unfortunately. So I just break it down, and it's just, like he said, a supporting document. Any other questions? Yeah?
What's Airbnb grading you on as a host?
Airbnb will give you a star system, right? 1 to 5 stars. And they judge you on quality, occupancy, conversion, earnings, cleaning, and then it'll also track your progress to superhost status. So a guest will be able to review each of those line items at the end of their stay with stars.
Is that all up on the website that we can have?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all in there.
And what I found out what I found out about this recently was that I implemented with my automatic messaging is setting a proper expectation, and then also communicating properly throughout, right? Because I think at the beginning I wasn't communicating properly, like what they were getting, right? And then their expectations might be like, oh, I'm going to the Ritz-Carlton for a 3-bedroom apartment and I'm paying $70 a night. I don't think so. So don't give me a review based on, a $70 a night 3-bedroom apartment, right? Versus a $500 hotel night.
You can lead that expectation.
Yeah, you have to lead that so that they understand what they're paying for and what they're getting versus, hey, give me a 3-star review because your expectations were just way out of whack, right? So there's some psychology that you have to kind of frame them with, but.
Sorry, one you just said, I have a tiny house, and I call it have a tiny house experience. They literally have 12 inches around their queen size bed, and they give me 5-star reviews. Like, it is expectation. The other thing is, any of you sign up for Airbnb, pick one of us, I don't care who it is. We make like $600 to refer you. So if you get someone to sign up, please.
Message me, yeah. Yeah, message us. We have referral links. I'll send them to everybody. Well, you pick who you like the best. We'll send an email out. Yeah, me and Justin aren't getting paid tonight, so we're gonna send that email out and pick one of the referral links. He's got 5 kids. All right, give it to him. Let's take it.
All right, anybody else? These are all good questions, guys. This is all, you know, your questions help the person sitting next to you, so keep asking.
Going way back to the insurance question, you said you didn't have commercial insurance, but you have like a regular rental policy that you have on it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah. I have
general liability
Yeah.
policy. I don't. Do you require any additional riders, Billy, in your stuff? Yeah. No, I've never had to add anything. Maybe like what she was saying about if you're doing a portion of your personal residence, it would be wise to inform your insurance company what you're doing. But a traditional rental coverage is sufficient.
You have a condo you said down in West Palm Beach? Okay. Does the condo association, do they know that you're doing it?
Yes. So the reason why I bought the condo that I bought is because I went through all the different condos and the different associations. Different associations will have different requirements, and a lot of them, specifically in West Palm Beach, had like the best ones that I would run into were a minimum 3-month, maybe a 6-month lease. This specific condo that I bought in the association, a billionaire that lives on Palm Beach Island actually owns 55% of the condos in the entire building. So he has a lot of power over the association. So that association is literally one of the only condos in the downtown that allows up to 12 one-month leases. So the only thing that's required additionally when I book it, they do actually have to sign, they don't have to sign a lease, but they have to fill out some additional paperwork for the association. But yeah, they're fine with it as long as it's a month. But yeah, be aware of that though. If you do look at condos or anything with an HOA, be aware of their restrictions. So, yep. Yes.
Like in Florida, do you have as much demand in the summer as you do in the winter months?
You know, obviously not as much, but I still will book it out of the 4 months that are really kind of hot down there. I'd say 50%. I randomly rented from July 15th to September 1st. You know, somebody just rented it for a month and a half. So yeah, obviously like not as much, but it'll get booked once or a couple months. But like he said, as long as mine down there, it was more of a buy for myself too. But like it meets the standards a little bit less. So same thing, like 50% should pay for itself. Mine's at like, if it's rented out 7 months out of the year, it pays, it breaks even, right? So that's all I really wanted. If it pays for itself and I get to go down there a little bit, it's good. And it's rented out more than 7 months usually, so.
Yes.
So on that Florida one,
Uh-huh.
so if I wanted to go down there on vacation and I wanted to rent that, I'd have to rent it for a complete month, even though I'm only going to stay there for a week.
Well, yeah, I mean, so yeah. If you wanted to rent it for, like, just call me up and say, hey, I'm just going to go down, I just wouldn't tell them. I just wouldn't tell the association, you know what I mean? But no, but I'm saying, like, if I don't know, like, but if somebody's actually going to rent it, no, they have to pay the whole month, so they can stay for however long they want. You got to pay for a month.
All right, guys. Well, Matt and I love the business. We're here to help. If you have any questions, feel free to approach us.
Yeah.
We'd be happy to answer questions.
It's a fun game. This is literally like, you should have fun with it. Like that's why we're, it's like, this is life.
I will say that, and this is more towards the apartment association, as this little niche business model grows, I think that it would be wise to have a committee that is specifically designed around the Airbnb business model, because it is very unique.
And it's evolving very quickly.
Right.
Like technology, like how slow has your business like evolved in just like the traditional rental standpoint? Like you've probably been doing the same thing probably for 20, 30 years, right? This, like it forces you to constantly be updated and keep up to date with what's happening. So
it would be wise to have somebody or a team of people that are up to date and can speak with current data on the actual business happenings of Airbnb at any given time. So I would recommend that that be at least considered at some point in the near future for the board. Yeah, Bob, you had a question.
One more question. Do you see that the industry is going to move toward blockchain or going to using Airbnb in the future as a market? You're paying Airbnb.
So you're asking basically if you think the blockchain will have a decentralized community of renters. I think that's possible very far in the future. Like blockchain technology has so many possibilities, but they're all just dreams right now, right? It's confusing to the average person, and it doesn't make your life simpler right now. And until it gets to that breaking point, Airbnb is far superior right now.
Would you just go with Airbnb?
Yeah, so I message like for my long-term guests in Florida, I always let them know, hey, if you ever want to come back down, let me know. Obviously, we can do a better price for you. We don't have to go through Airbnb. I trust you now. You took care of it. You know, so from a long, I'm sure Justin, talks to a lot of people that a lot longer, right? So.
I mean, I make more money through Airbnb, so I'd rather not even offer that because now I got to go through that physical onboarding and screening, and like it's just another layer of it's another interaction that I don't want to have. So I'd rather just have everything Airbnb if I had my preference.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. How does your occupancy change during winter with Airbnbs? Because I know it's like more so for vacations. So who's coming there?
Mine's flat. Mine's still pretty good. Yeah. Like I might change 5%. I might go from 95% to 90%.
Yeah, that's probably, I would agree with that. And I mean, I don't attract the weekend warrior, I call it. I attract contract people, so there's always a need for the contract worker. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like you think about, okay, well, I have 6 units in Erie, right? Well, how many hotels are there? I'm only taking 6 rooms away. It's not like it's not like, I built a 500 room hotel, People come, people come.
Anything else? Any last comments? No?
No. Thanks, guys.